The repair station floated in the darkness of space like a forgotten toy. It was old and ugly. Rust covered its walls, and the lights flickered at night. Most people in the galaxy did not know this place existed. It orbited a dying planet where trade ships stopped only when they had no other choice. This was Orbital Ring Gamma, and in Bay 17. A human man named Taiho worked alone. Taiho was not a young man anymore. He was 43 years old, and his black hair had started to turn gray at the sides. His hands were rough and covered with old scars. Grease lived under his fingernails, no matter how hard he scrubbed. He wore the same gray jumpsuit every day, and he spoke to others only when he had to. For 11 years, this had been his life. He woke up, he fixed broken ships, he ate simple food, and he slept. The next day, he did it again. He wanted nothing more than this quiet existence. The station was home to many alien species. There were the tall, thin Valori with their silver skin. There were the small, furry Kith who talked too much. And sometimes there were the Draken massive reptilian warriors with scales like armor and eyes like fire. The Draken had once ruled half the galaxy. They were proud creatures who looked down on humans, to most aliens on the station. Humans were nothing special. They were workers, laborers, the species that fixed things and cleaned things and did the jobs nobody else wanted. Humans were useful, but they were not respected. Taiho preferred it this way. He arrived at Bay 17 every morning before the station's artificial sun turned on. He liked the quiet hours when nobody bothered him. He would make himself a cup of bitter coffee, sit on an old crate, and stare at the stars through the small viewport window. Sometimes he wondered if the stars remembered what he had done. The other mechanics on the station thought Taiho was strange. He never joined them for drinks at the station bar. He never talked about his past. He never complained about the long hours or the poor pay. He simply worked, day after day, like a machine that never stopped. But they also noticed things about him that did not make sense. Old Hana, the station supply manager, once saw Taiho repair a Draken warship core in 3 hours. These cores were complicated pieces of technology that even master engineers struggled with. Most mechanics would need a full day just to understand the problem. Taiho had looked at it, nodded once, and fixed it like he was changing a light bulb. Where did you learn to do that? Hannah had asked him. Taiho had not answered. He simply wiped his hands and walked away. Another time, a young mechanic named Doan watched Taiho work on a military fighter's navigation system. Taiho's hands moved with impossible speed and precision. It was like watching a musician play an instrument they had practiced for a lifetime. You were military, weren't you? Doan asked. Taiho's hands stopped. For a brief moment, something dark passed across his face. Then it was gone, and he was the quiet mechanic again. I fix ships, Taiho said. That is all. But Dohan was not stupid. He had seen the way Taiho flinched whenever military vessels docked at the station. He had seen how Taiho would disappear into his quarters and not come out for hours when Draken warships arrived. Something in the human's past was buried deep, and it wanted to stay buried. Taiho lived in a small room near Bay 17. It was barely big enough for a bed, a desk, and a tiny bathroom. He owned almost nothing. A few clothes, some tools, a photograph of a sunset on Earth that he had never visited. But beneath the floor, hidden under a metal panel that looked like all the others, there was something else. It was wrapped in old cloth that had turned yellow with age. Taiho had not touched it in 12 years. He tried not to think about it. Some nights he succeeded. Other nights he lay awake and felt its presence like a weight pressing on his chest. The thing beneath his floor was a sword. But it was not just any sword. It was called the Sunset Fang. The blade was made from a metal that shimmered like fire when it caught the light. Its handle was wrapped in black leather, and a single red gem sat in its center. The sword was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Only 7 such blades existed in the entire galaxy. They were not given for bravery or loyalty. They were not passed down through families. The Sunset Fang was awarded for one thing only: killing a Dragon-class battlecruiser in single combat. Dragon-class battlecruiser was the most powerful warship the Draken had ever built. It was 2 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to destroy a small planet. One such ship could defeat an entire human fleet. 7 pilots in human history had destroyed one alone. Taeho was the 7th. He did not feel like a hero. He felt like a ghost wearing human skin. The Dragon Wars had ended 12 years ago. It was a conflict that had killed millions across 3 star systems. The Draken Empire had attacked human colonies without warning, burning entire cities to ash. Humans had fought back with everything they had. It was a war of survival, and humanity had won, but victory had cost them everything. Taeho remembered the war like a fever dream. The screaming alarms, the burning ships, the faces of friends who died beside him. He had been a pilot then, the best pilot in the human fleet. They gave him the most dangerous missions because he always came back, until the Battle of Crimson. Nebula. He did not like to remember that day, but the memories came anyway, especially at night. He remembered flying his small fighter toward the Draken flagship. He remembered the plasma fire that turned space white with heat. He remembered the moment when he found the weakness in the battlecruiser's hull and fired his last missile. The explosion had been beautiful, like a second sun being born. Admiral Garth, the greatest Draken commander, died in that explosion. His death broke the Draken fleet's spirit. The war ended 3 months later. They wanted to give Taeho parades and medals and speeches. They wanted him to become a symbol of human strength. Politicians and generals lined up to shake his hand. Taeho refused all of it. He took the Sunset Fang because they would not stop asking. Then he disappeared. He erased his records. He changed his name. He found the most forgotten corner of the galaxy and became nobody. For 12 years, it worked. The galaxy forgot about the ghost of Sector 9. The name became a legend, a story that soldiers told over drinks. Nobody connected that legend to the tired mechanic in Base 17. Taeho wanted to keep it that way, but the universe has a strange sense of humor. The past does not stay buried forever, and sometimes the people you thought you would never see again find their way back to you on an ordinary day. In an ordinary repair bay, Taeho was working on an engine when he heard the sound of a ship docking. He did not look up. Ships came and went all the time, but then he heard the footsteps. Heavy footsteps. The kind made by creatures with claws and scales. A shadow fell over his workstation. Taeho's hands stopped moving. His heart began to beat faster. He had not felt this feeling in 12 years, the cold touch of danger crawling up his spine. Slowly, he raised his head. A Draken stood before him. She was tall and covered in dark green scales that bore the marks of old battles. Her left eye was mechanical, a replacement made of metal and glass. She wore the uniform of the Draken Imperial Fleet, and she was looking at him with an expression he could not read. "You," she said, her voice like stones grinding together. "I know you." Taeho said nothing, but inside his chest, the ghost he had tried to kill began to wake up. The past had found him at last. Commander Yuna had not planned to stop at Orbital Ring Gamma. Her scout ship had been damaged during a routine patrol, and the station was the only repair facility within 3 days of travel. She had no choice. She hated this place already. The station was dirty and crowded with species she did not respect. The Valori looked at her with fear in their silver eyes. The Kith scurried away when she walked past. Even the other Draken on the station, merchants and travelers, lowered their heads when they saw her uniform. Yuna was used to this. She was a commander of the Imperial fleet, a veteran of the Dragon Wars. Her scales bore the marks of plasma fire that had burned her during the Battle of Crimson Nebula. Her left eye was gone, replaced by a mechanical sensor that saw heat and movement better than any natural eye could. But the mechanical eye could not give back what she had lost that day. She had lost her fleet. She had lost her honor. She had lost 1,200 warriors who trusted her to lead them, all because of one human pilot. For 10 years, Yuna had tried to move on. The war was over. The peace treaty had been signed. The Draken Empire had accepted defeat, though it burned like acid in their blood. Yuna had done her duty. She had served her people. She had tried to forget, but she could not forget Crimson Nebula. She could not forget the human fighter that had danced through her fleet like a spirit of death. She could not forget watching Admiral Gareth's flagship explode into 1,000 pieces of fire. They called the pilot the Ghost of Sector 9. Nobody knew his real name. Nobody knew his face. After the war ended, he had simply vanished. Some said he died. Some said he was hiding. Some said he was never real, just a story humans invented to make themselves feel strong. Yuna knew he was real. She had seen his ship with her own eye, the one she still had. She had felt his presence like a cold wind across her scales. In those few minutes of battle, she had understood something that changed her forever. Humans were not weak. Humans were terrifying. When her damaged ship docked at the station, Yuna stepped off with her crew of 3. They were young Draken who had never seen real war. They looked at the station with curiosity, not understanding how small and sad this place was. "Commander, we should have the repairs done in 2 days," said Jinu, her second officer. He was eager and respectful, but he did not understand Yuna's silence. "Fine," Yuna said. "I will inspect the station." She walked alone through the corridors. Her claws clicked against the metal floor. Her mechanical eyes scanned everything, recording data out of habit. The station was even worse up close, rust on the walls, flickering lights, the smell of old oil and sweat, and humans. So many humans. They worked everywhere, fixing pipes, carrying cargo, cleaning floors. They barely looked at her, too focused on their tasks. To them, she was just another Draken passing through. They did not know who she was or what she had done. Yuna felt something strange in her chest. It might have been shame. During the war, she had believed humans were insects to be crushed. She had burned their colonies without mercy. She had followed orders because that was what soldiers did. She had never stopped to look at their faces. Now she saw them everywhere, living their small lives. And she wondered how many of them had lost family in her flames. She walked past Bay 17 and stopped. Her mechanical eye had caught something. Heat patterns. Movement patterns. Something in the way the human mechanic in the bay held his body. She watched him work on an engine. His hands were fast and precise. His body was relaxed but ready, like a warrior pretending to be peaceful. His eyes were focused, but she could see the awareness in them. He knew exactly where every person in the bay was standing. Yuna had seen this before. Only soldiers moved like that. Only killers had that kind of awareness. She walked closer, and the human did not look up. He was good at pretending, but Yuna was better at seeing. She studied his hands, the way his fingers gripped the tools, the angle of his wrists, the tiny movements that most people would never notice. Her heart began to beat faster. She had seen those hands before. 10 years ago, through the screen of her dying ship, she had seen them wrapped around the controls of a human fighter. She had watched them guide that fighter through impossible maneuvers, dodging plasma fire that should have killed any pilot 10 times over. "It cannot be," she whispered to herself, but her mechanical eye did not lie. It measured. It calculated. It compared the data to her memories of that terrible day. The match was close enough to make her claws shake. Una stepped into the bay. The human still did not look up, but she saw his shoulders tighten. Just a little. Just enough to tell her he knew she was there. She stopped 3 meters away from him. Close enough to speak, close enough to kill. "You," she said, her voice rough. "I know you." The human's hands stopped moving. For a long moment, he did not respond. Then, slowly, he raised his head. His eyes were brown and tired. His face was lined with years of exhaustion. He looked like an ordinary man who had worked hard his whole life. He looked like nobody special. But Una had learned long ago that the most dangerous creatures often look the weakest. "I think you are mistaken," the human said. His voice was calm. Too calm. "I am just a mechanic." "No," Una said. "You are not." She stepped closer. The other workers in the bay had noticed something was wrong. They were backing away slowly, sensing the tension in the air. "I was at Crimson Nebula," Una said. "I commanded the defense ships around Admiral Gorez's flagship. I watched a single human fighter destroy everything I was sworn to protect." The human's face did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. A wall going up. A door closing. "Many pilots flew at Crimson Nebula," he said. "Only one flew like that." Una's mechanical eye locked onto his face, recording every tiny movement. Only one could have done what he did. They called him the Ghost of Sector 9. They gave him a sword for killing our greatest ship. The human said nothing. "The Ghost disappeared after the war," Una continued. "No one knew where he went. Many believed he died. But I never believed that. A man who could survive Crimson Nebula does not die quietly." She took another step forward. They were close enough now that she could smell him human sweat, machine oil, something deeper that might have been fear or might have been anger. "I spent years looking for him," Una said. "Not for revenge. Not at first. I wanted to understand. I wanted to know what kind of creature could do such a thing. What kind of being could kill 1,200 of my kin in a single battle." The human finally spoke, and his voice was softer now. "Why does it matter? The war is over. The war will never be over for me," Una said. "Not until I understand." She looked at his hands again. Those terrible, skillful hands. "Tell me the truth," she said. "Are you him? Are you the ghost?" The bay had gone completely silent. Everyone was watching. The human's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Una thought he would lie again. Then his shoulders dropped, and the wall behind his eyes crumbled. "Yes," he said quietly. "I am." Una felt the breath leave her body. All these years. All this searching. And here he was, hiding as a mechanic on a forgotten station. Fixing broken ships like his hands had not shaped the history of 2 civilizations. "Why are you here?" she demanded. "Why are you hiding?" The human looked at her with eyes that held more pain than she had expected. "Because I am tired," he said. "Because I did not want to be a hero. Because every time I close my eyes, I see the faces of the people I killed." He paused. "Even yours, Commander. I remember you. You were the last one standing between me and the flagship. You almost stopped me." Una's claws curled into fists. The memory of that day crashed over her like a wave, the chaos, the fire. The moment when her ship was destroyed and she floated in the void, watching everything she loved burn. "I should kill you," she said. "Yes," the human agreed. "You probably should." He did not move. He did not run. He simply stood there, waiting for her judgment. And Una realized, with a shock that shook her to her bones, that she did not want to kill him. She wanted answers. "Come with me," she said. "We need to talk. Somewhere private." The human hesitated for only a moment. Then he nodded and put down his tools. They walked together through the station. The dragon who had lost everything, and the ghost who had taken it away. Neither of them knew that before the night was over, the universe would force them to make a choice that would change both their lives forever. But for now, they simply walked. Two old enemies. Two broken soldiers. Two creatures haunted by the same war. Taiho's quarters were small and plain. There was barely enough room for two people, and with Yuna standing inside, it felt even smaller. Her scale seemed to fill the space with heat and tension. He offered her the only chair. She refused and stood against the wall, her arms crossed over her chest. Her mechanical eye glowed faintly in the dim light. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Taiho sat on the edge of his bed and looked at his hands. The same hands that had killed her fleet. The same hands that had ended the war. They looked so ordinary now, rough and scarred from years of honest work. "You live like a monk," Yuna said finally. Her voice was cold but curious. "The most famous human pilot in history, and you sleep in a closet." "I am not famous," Taiho said. "The ghost was famous. I am nobody. You cannot separate yourself from what you did. I have been trying for 12 years. Yuna made a sound that might have been a laugh, but it held no humor. "And how is that working for you?" Taiho did not answer. He did not need to. The darkness under his eyes told her everything. "I dreamed about killing you," Yuna said. "For years after the war, I dreamed about finding you. In my dreams, I tore you apart with my claws. I watched you burn like my ships burned. I made you feel what I felt. And now?" Taiho asked. Yuna was silent for a moment. Her mechanical eye whirred softly as it focused on his face. "Now I stand here, and I feel nothing," she admitted. "You are not a monster. You are just a man. A tired, broken man. Monsters are not born," Taiho said quietly. "They are made." He stood and walked to the corner of his room. He knelt down and pulled at a panel in the floor. It came loose with a soft click, revealing a hidden space beneath. Yuna tensed, her claws extending slightly. But Taiho only pulled out a bundle wrapped in old cloth. He placed it on the bed between them, and slowly unwrapped it. The sword caught the light and seemed to glow. Its blade shimmered like fire frozen in metal. The red gem in its handle pulsed with a faint inner light. Even Yuna, who had seen many weapons in her life, felt her breath catch. "The Sunset Fang," she whispered. "They gave it to me after I killed Admiral Gorath," Taiho said. "The seventh blade ever created. They wanted me to carry it in parades. They wanted me to hold it while politicians made speeches about human strength." He touched the blade gently, like it was something that might bite him. "I took it so they would stop asking. Then I wrapped it up and hid it. I have not looked at it in 12 years. Why?" Yuna asked. Taiho looked up at her, and his eyes were full of something she did not expect. It was not pride or shame. It was grief. "Because this blade is a reminder of everything I did. Every ship I destroyed. Every life I took. Every mother on your worlds who lost a child because of me." He sat back down heavily. "They called me a hero. But heroes save people. I only killed them." Yuna was quiet for a long time. The mechanical whir of her eye was the only sound in the room. Finally, she spoke. "Do you know why I almost stopped you at Crimson Nebula?" Taiho shook his head. "Because I knew what you were going to do," Yuna said. "I saw your flight path. I understood your strategy before my commanders did. You were not just attacking. You were hunting. You found the one weak spot in our formation, and you flew straight for it like an arrow." She uncrossed her arms and stepped closer. "I ordered all remaining ships to intercept you. I put myself between you and the flagship. I was willing to die to stop you. But I got through," Taiho said. "Yes, you did." Yuna's voice was hard. You flew through plasma fire that should have melted your ship. You dodged missiles that had never missed before. And when you fired your weapon, you aimed perfectly. One shot. That was all it took. Taiho closed his eyes. He could still hear the explosion. He could still feel the heat through his cockpit. I watched the flagship die, Yuna continued. I watched Admiral Gorath die. I watched everything I believed in burn. And do you know what I felt in that moment? Hatred, Taiho guessed. No. Yuna's voice dropped to a whisper. I felt respect. Taiho's eyes snapped open. You were terrifying, Yuna said. But you were also magnificent. In that moment, I understood why humans had survived so long against us. You do not fight like we do. You do not follow rules. You find another way, always. Even when it should be impossible. She looked at the sword on the bed. I hated you for years because you took everything from me. But I also could not stop thinking about you. Wondering who you were. Wondering why you disappeared. Now you know, Taiho said bitterly. I am a coward who ran away from his own legend. No, Yuna said. You are a man who could not live with what he had become. That is not cowardice. That is conscience. The word hung in the air between them. Conscience. It was not a word Taiho had used to describe himself in a long time. The war was wrong, Yuna said suddenly. Taiho looked at her in surprise. My people started it, she continued. We attacked your colonies because we believed humans were weak. We thought we could crush you in months. We were arrogant and cruel. Her scale shifted, and Taiho saw old scars beneath them, marks that had nothing to do with battle. I followed orders. I burned your cities. I killed your people. Her voice cracked slightly. And I told myself it was right because my commanders said it was right. Because the Empire demanded it. She met his eyes. I have no right to judge you. You were defending your people. I was attacking yours. Taiho felt something shift in his chest. For 12 years, he had carried his guilt alone. He had never talked to anyone about what he had done. He had never expected understanding from anyone, least of all a Draken. But here was Yuna, his enemy, his victim, standing before him with her own guilt written on her face. We are both monsters, Taiho said softly. Both of us. Yes, Yuna agreed. But perhaps monsters can become something else. She reached down and picked up the sunset fang. The blade glowed in her clawed hand. For a moment, Taiho thought she might kill him with his own sword. Instead, she turned it around and held the handle toward him. You earned this, she said. Not for killing my people. For ending a war that would have killed millions more. If Admiral Gorath had lived, he would have burned every human world to ash. You stopped him. Taiho did not take the sword. I do not want it, he said. Want has nothing to do with it. Yuna's voice was firm. You are the ghost of Sector 9. That is not something you can escape by hiding on a forgotten station. Sooner or later, the galaxy will find you again. Then let it find me as a mechanic. Yuna shook her head slowly. You are more than that. You know it. I know it. She placed the sword on the bed and stepped back. I came here to find answers. I found something I did not expect. She looked at him with her one natural eye, golden and ancient, and full of something that might have been sadness. I found a man who carries the same weight I do. Taiho said nothing. I do not know what the future holds, Yuna said. But I know that you cannot hide forever. And when the time comes when the galaxy needs the ghost again, I hope you will remember that you do not have to face it alone. She turned and walked toward the door. Commander, Taiho called out. She stopped but did not turn around. Why did you not kill me? Yuna was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Because I'm tired, too. And I think we have both killed enough. She left without another word. Taiho sat alone in his quarters, staring at the sword that glowed softly on his bed. For the first time in 12 years, he did not feel completely alone, but he also felt something else. A warning deep in his bones. A sense that the universe was about to change. He did not know how right he was. 3 hours later, the alarms began to scream. The alarms tore through the station like screaming children. Red lights flashed in every corridor. People ran in all directions, their faces twisted with fear. Taiho was on his feet before the second alarm finished sounding. His body remembered what his mind had tried to forget. Danger, combat, death incoming. He grabbed the sunset fang and ran. The station's command center was chaos. The old Valori commander was shouting orders that nobody followed. Screens showed what was coming: 50 warships dropping out of hyperspace, their weapons already charging. Draken warships. Taiho pushed through the crowd until he reached the main screen. His heart stopped when he saw the symbols on the ships, that they were not Imperial fleet. They were something worse. Crimson Dawn. He had heard stories about them over the years. Draken extremists who refused to accept the peace treaty. Warriors who believed their people had been shamed by losing the war. They wanted to restart the conflict, to burn humanity down to the last child. Their leader was a young Draken named Borum, the son of Admiral Garth, the son of the man Taiho had killed. "We have no defenses," the Valori commander was saying, his silver skin turning pale. "This station has no military weapons. We are civilians." "They do not care," someone said. Taiho turned and saw Yuna pushing through the crowd. Her face was hard, and her mechanical eye glowed bright red as it scanned the incoming ships. "Crimson Dawn does not take prisoners," she said. "They will destroy this station and everyone on it." "Why?" someone screamed. "Why would they attack us?" Yuna's communicator crackled. A voice came through, cold and full of hate. "Commander Yuna, traitor to the Draken blood. You dock at a human station while our people suffer. You shame your ancestors." Yuna pulled out the communicator. "Borum, you have lost your mind." "My mind is clear for the first time in years." The voice laughed. "My father died because of humans, because our people were too weak to finish them. But I am not weak. I will complete what my father started." "Your father started a war that killed millions of Draken," Yuna said sharply. "He led our people to shame, not glory." "Silence!" Borum's voice exploded through the speaker. "You will watch this station burn. You will watch every human on it die screaming. And then you will die with them, traitor." The communication cut off. Yuna looked at the screen. 50 warships were moving into attack position. The station had no shields, no weapons, nothing. It was a slaughter waiting to happen. "How long until they reach weapon range?" she asked. 20 minutes, the Valori commander whispered. "Maybe less. 20 minutes until everyone died." Taiho looked around the command center. He saw humans clutching their children. He saw aliens crying. He saw old Hana from the supply department praying to gods she had not believed in for years. These people had done nothing wrong. They were mechanics and traders and families. They had come to this forgotten station to live quiet lives. And now they were going to die because of a war that had ended 12 years ago. Because of a pilot who had killed a Draken admiral. Because of him. Something shifted inside Taiho's chest. It was like a door opening after being locked for too long. The ghost he had buried was waking up, and this time he did not try to stop it. "Is there a ship?" he asked. His voice was calm. Too calm. People around him turned to look. "What?" The Valori commander said. "A fighter. A shuttle. Anything with weapons." The commander shook his head. "We have one old Hawk 7 in Storage Bay 9. It was decommissioned years ago. Nobody has flown it since the Dragon Wars, Taiho finished. I know the ship. He started walking toward the door. People moved out of his way without knowing why. There was something different about the quiet mechanic now. Something in his eyes that made them afraid. Yuana caught up to him in the corridor. What are you doing? She demanded. What I should have done 12 years ago, Taiho said. I should have stayed. I should have protected people instead of running away. One ship cannot stop 50 warships. Taiho stopped and looked at her. There was fire in his eyes. Now, the same fire she had seen at Crimson Nebula. It did once. Yuna stared at him. The ghost of Sector 9 was standing before her, and he was no longer hiding. You will die, she said. Probably. Taiho started walking again. But they will die first. As many as I can take. Wait. He stopped. Yuna stepped in front of him. Her mechanical eye scanned his face, but her natural eye was soft. I will fly with you, she said. Taiho blinked. You are Draken. These are your people attacking. They are not my people. Yuna's voice was hard as stone. My people do not murder civilians. My people do not kill children to satisfy their pride. Borum has become exactly what we accused humans of being, a monster. She stepped closer. I was at Crimson Nebula. I watched you fly. I know what you can do. But even the ghost needs someone watching his back. Taiho looked at her for a long moment. This morning, they had been enemies. Now she wanted to fight beside him. The universe had a strange sense of humor. Can you fly a human ship? He asked. I have studied your technology for years. I wanted to understand how you beat us. Yuna almost smiled. I can handle a Hawk 7. The ship only has one cockpit. Then we share. Taiho shook his head, but he could not stop the small laugh that escaped his lips. If someone had told me this morning that I would fly into battle with a Draken commander, you would have called them crazy, Yuna finished. Yes, the universe enjoys its jokes. They reached Storage Bay 9 together. The Hawk 7 was covered in dust and looked older than both of them. It was a small fighter, built for speed and maneuverability rather than firepower. Its wings were folded against its body like a sleeping bird. Taiho climbed onto the ship and opened the panel. He started working with the same hands that had fixed countless broken engines. But now those hands had a different purpose. The power core is dead, he said. I need to restart it manually. I will check the weapons. They worked in silence for 10 minutes. The alarm still screamed in the distance. On the station screens, the Crimson Dawn fleet grew closer. Finally, the Hawk 7 hummed to life. Its old engines coughed once, twice, then roared with power. The lights in the cockpit flickered on. Taiho climbed into the pilot's seat. The controls felt familiar, like the hands of an old friend. He had not sat in a cockpit since the war ended. He had sworn he never would again. But some promises are made to be broken. Yuna squeezed into the space behind him. It was tight, but she managed to reach the secondary controls that handled targeting and shields. This is insane, she said. Yes, Taiho agreed. We will probably die. Yes. Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed a real laugh, full of something that might have been joy. I spent 10 years dreaming of killing you, she said. Now I am flying to my death beside you. Life is strange. Taiho powered up the engines. The Hawk 7 lifted off the bay floor and moved toward the launch door. Commander, he said. Double quotes, yes. Thank you. Yuna said nothing, but she put her clawed hand on his shoulder. It was warm and strong. The launch door opened, revealing the black void of space. 50 warships waited. Well then, Taiho said quietly. Let's go remind them why they should have let the ghost stay dead. The Hawk 7 screamed out into the darkness. A single spark against an army of flames. And aboard the command ship, Borum watched the lone fighter approach with something close to joy. "The ghost," he whispered. "Father, I will avenge you today." He did not know that his death was already coming for him. He did not know what humans could do. When they stopped hiding, he was about to learn. Space exploded with light. The Crimson Dawn fleet opened fire the moment Taiho's Hawk 7 cleared the station. Plasma bolts and missiles turned the void into a river of death. Any normal pilot would have been destroyed in the first 3 seconds. Taiho was not a normal pilot. He rolled the fighter hard to the left, then dived beneath a barrage of plasma fire. His hands moved across the controls like water flowing downhill, natural, smooth, without thought. The ship responded to him as if it were part of his body. Behind him, Yuna worked the targeting systems. Her mechanical eye tracked enemy ships while her claws danced across the buttons. 3 fighters incoming from above, she called out. Taiho pulled up sharply, then twisted the ship in a spiral that should have torn the hull apart. The 3 enemy fighters shot past, their weapons hitting nothing but empty space. "I have a lock," Yuna said. Fire. 2 of the 3 fighters exploded in balls of orange flame. The third tried to run, but Taiho was faster. He came up behind it and let Yuna finish the job. "That is 3, Yuna said. 47 to go." "We only need to slow them down," Taiho replied. His voice was calm, but sweat ran down his face. The station sent a distress call. "Human defense ships are on the way." "How long?" 3 hours. Yuna made a sound that was half laugh, half curse. "We need to survive for 3 hours against 50 warships. I have done harder things." Another wave of missiles came screaming toward them. Taiho flew directly at them, then pulled up at the last moment. The missiles tried to follow, but he led them straight into a group of enemy fighters. The explosion took out 4 more ships. 7 down, Yuna counted. "The fleet is reforming. They are trying to surround us." Taiho looked at the tactical display. Yuna was right. The enemy ships were spreading out in a pattern designed to trap them. Once they were surrounded, even his skills would not matter. "We need to hit their command ship," Taiho said. "Cut off the head, and the body dies." Borum's ship is at the center of the fleet. The protection is heaviest there, I know. Taiho's hands tightened on the controls. "But I have done it before." Yuna understood. He had killed Borum's father the same way, flying straight through. Impossible defenses to strike at the heart. "Then let us give them a reason to remember this day," she said. Taiho pushed the engines to full power. The Hawk 7 screamed toward the center of the enemy fleet like a comet made of steel and fire. Back on the station, the people watched on screens as the single human fighter tore through the Draken formation. Old Hana was crying. Young Dohan was cheering. The Valori commander stood in silence, his mouth hanging open. They were watching history happen. Word spread through the station's communication channels. The ghost of Sector 9 had returned. The legend was real, and he was fighting to save them all. Something changed in the station survivors that day. The fear did not disappear, but something else joined it. Hope, pride, the knowledge that even in the darkest moment, one person could stand against an army. The civilian ships on the station began to power up. Mining vessels and cargo haulers, freighters and transport ships, none of them were designed for combat. But their captains were done hiding. "If the ghost can fight," one human captain said over the radio, "so can we." The civilian fleet launched. They had no weapons except mining lasers and cargo clamps. They had no training except years of hard work. But they flew toward the battle anyway. 1 ship became 2. 2 became 10. 10 became 30. The Crimson Dawn fleet suddenly had enemies on all sides. In the chaos, Taiho found his opening. He flew through a gap in the enemy formation. dodging plasma fire that came so close it burned the paint off his ship. Yuna kept firing, taking down any fighter that came too close. They moved together like they had been flying as partners for years, not hours. Borum's command ship grew larger on the screen. "He is hailing us," Yuna said. "Put him through." Borum's face appeared on the display. He was young for a Draken, barely out of childhood. But his eyes burned with the same hatred that had driven his father. "Ghost," Borum said. "You killed my father. You destroyed my family. And now you think you can stop me?" "I am not trying to stop you," Taiho said calmly. "I'm trying to give you a choice." "What choice?" "Surrender. Turn your ships around. Let these people live." Borum laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You are one ship against my fleet. Even with those pathetic civilian vessels, you cannot win. Why would I surrender?" "Because if you do not, I will do to you what I did to your father." The laughter stopped. "You cannot reach me," Borum said, but his voice was less confident now. "My defenses. Your father said the same thing." Taiho cut the communication and pushed the throttle forward. The command ship's defense systems came alive. Hundreds of turrets opened fire. Fighters swarmed from every direction. The space around the ship became a wall of death. Taiho flew through it. He did not think. He did not plan. He simply moved. The ship was an extension of his will, and his will was iron. 12 years of guilt and hiding burned away in the fire of battle. The ghost was alive again, and he was angry. Missiles screamed past. Plasma bolts grazed the hull. A piece of the wing tore away, but Taiho kept flying. "The shield generator," Yuna shouted. "Port side, near the engine section. If we hit it, I see it." The target was small, barely visible among the armored plating. A normal pilot would never have noticed it. But Taiho had spent 12 years studying Draken ships. He knew their weaknesses better than their own engineers. He lined up the shot. "Yuna, ready. Fire." The missile launched. It flew true and straight, punching through the gap in the armor and striking the shield generator. The explosion rippled across the command ship. Its shields flickered and died. "Shields down," Yuna reported. "He is vulnerable." Taiho could have destroyed the ship. He had the shot. One more missile, and Borum would burn just like his father. But he hesitated. 12 years ago, he had not hesitated. He had fired without mercy, and he had spent every day since regretting it. The killing had been necessary, but it had cost him everything. He was tired of killing. "Borum," he said over an open channel, "your shields are down. Your fleet is broken. This is your last chance." Silence. Then Borum's voice came through, small and defeated. "If I surrender, they will execute me." "Maybe," Taiho said. "Or maybe they will let you spend your life making up for what you tried to do today. Either way, you get to choose how you die fighting for nothing or living for something." A long moment passed. Then, one by one, the Crimson Dawn ships stopped firing. Their weapons powered down. Their engines slowed down on the station. Someone started cheering. Then everyone was cheering. The sound echoed through the corridors like music. Taiho leaned back in his seat. His hands were shaking. The adrenaline was fading, and exhaustion was taking its place. "Is it over?" Yuna asked, for now. When the human defense fleet arrived 2 hours later, they found a scene they could barely believe. 42 enemy ships had been disabled or destroyed. The Crimson Dawn was broken. And in the middle of it all, a single Hawk 7 floated in the void, its pilot waiting quietly for rescue. The galaxy learned what had happened within days. The ghost of Sector 9 had returned. A Draken commander had fought beside him. Civilians had risen up to defend their home. It was a story that spread across human space like wildfire. 1 month later, Taiho was back on orbital ring Gamma. He had refused all medals, all parades, all speeches. He had asked for only one thing to return to his station, but now the sunset fang hung openly on the wall of his quarters. Not hidden, not forgotten. A reminder of what he was capable of and what he had chosen not to do. Yuna stayed on the station too. Her own people did not know what to make of her, a commander who had fought against her own species. She was somewhere between hero and traitor, and she was fine with that. She came to his quarters one night with 2 cups of the station's terrible coffee. "The galaxy is calling you a hero again," she said. "The galaxy can call me whatever it wants." Taiho took the coffee. "I am still just a mechanic. You are more than that." Yuna sat across from him. "You always were." They drank in silence for a while. Outside the viewport, stars burned quietly in the endless dark. "Will you fly again if they need you?" Yuna asked. Taiho looked at the sunset fang. The blade caught the starlight and glowed like fire. "I hope they never need me," he said. "But if they do—" He turned to her, and for the first time in 12 years, his eyes held something like peace. "I will not hide anymore." The mechanic had worked in shadows for so long. He had buried the soldier, the pilot, the legend. He had tried to become nobody, but some people are not meant to be nobody. Some people are meant to remind the galaxy what humanity can do when the darkness comes. What one person can become when they stop running from who they are. Taiho was the ghost of Sector 9. And he had finally come home.